Welcome to Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Each show will have a talk about Linux projects, such as a Linux distribution, or a desktop environment, an application, perhaps. We also chat about the news or any variety of topics from the community. Anything that's Linux, tech, and open source related is on the table for discussion. And with me today, I'm Nate, and with me today, I've got a fantastic bundle of people. Is that a bundle when you have like wheat? You bundle the wheat? I got Jason, Sravan, Schickel, Colin, Eris, Ben, and Dale.
And Ben is happy today.
And Ben, you're always happy, aren't you?
But I'm ecstatic as heck today.
Okay, we have an ecstatic Ben and a Dale today. Plus, for a bonus, we did get an Eric who just waltzed right through the swinging doors.
And I have a
of the
double
saloon.
bonus for you, buddy. I have a
And he's
woman
got-
join.
Oh, okay. And great.
She'll be a little late, but we
That's
get
fine.
some woman coverage today.
I always, anybody's, we're a welcoming Linuxy thing
Welcoming
that
group.
anybody can
Yep.
join. Doesn't matter if you are a man or a woman or
Yeah.
whatever. So,
Yeah. Well, this one will be kind of special.
great. I tried to get my 13-year-old to join because remember we had like computer kid who used to join. I don't know how old he was, like 13,
Oh
12.
God.
Yeah, that was fun. But my boy wants nothing to do with
He wants
his
something to
face
do
being
with
shown.
tech.
No, actually he likes tech. He's in robotics.
He just want nothing to do with us. That's all.
He doesn't want anything to do with me. No, I'm kidding. Actually, I was just helping him
Ah,
with this.
That's
With this
ridiculous.
Debian thing, a build of a Raspberry Pi OS, and it was making me very frustrated today. So, anyway, be sure to do the Strawpoll if you haven't done so already. Check out the Strawpoll. It's about how your experience with Ghostty has been. Ghostty is a terminal emulator we're going to be talking about. So, on the docket for today, we got that Strawpoll. We're talking about Ghostty. Do a little housekeeping. Might be some news if we run out of things to talk about in relation to Ghostty and the terminal. And then we'll do a community free pour with an ecstatic Ben, with or without his buddies. And then we'll close it out with the last call.
Yeah,
So, but-
sadly, none of my friends could make it tonight. They're all busy and IRL stuff.
Hey, you know what? You know what, Ben? At least you have friends. Some of us don't, and that's why we host a thing called Linux Saloon.
Well,
I pretend
hey,
like I have
at
friends.
least I'm
Anyway,
here with you guys, so hopefully I'll get some backup at least.
So what have you been doing in Linux and tech? Colin, you told me before the show, or told us rather before the show, you installed Windows.
Yep.
So it was nice knowing you. So we'll probably have somebody.
See you later.
See you later, suckers. I'm done with you Linux people.
Oh boy.
But it was for a purpose. And what was that
Yes.
purpose?
The purpose was to use Teams for a job interview. So I haven't used Windows I haven't installed Windows. I have installed Windows on other people's computers, but not personally for myself.
Okay.
I've got 2 drives in here, so I took my main drive out so it didn't get corrupted. But I left one drive in, installed Windows on that. It told me it couldn't install it because it wasn't my machine wasn't compatible. But we all know it is, right? So yeah, I did the bypass thing, got through that and installed it with my Hotmail account this time, not a local account, which is what I normally do. Because I needed emails straight off the bat in there. It's got a new Outlook, which confused the heck out of me. So yes, I installed Windows and Team. Oh, the only reason because I couldn't get Teams working in Linux. I tried installing it, but it said it was I think doesn't work natively in Linux anymore. So there's Aris told me the progressive web app. Tried that, didn't work, just kept failing. So that was my last resort. And then you told me before the show, what did you tell me?
Use a
Nate?
Flatpak. So I'm going to share a link. It's for
Use a flat pack.
It's a Flatpak, yeah. So I'm going to share a link with you in the. It's going to be in the Zoom. It's so. I
Use
work
a
in
flat pack.
I
Why
work in a
didn't I
Microsoft-
do that?
I don't know. It's called Teams for Linux. It's actually just a web app also with a wrapper around it, and it works really well.
Yeah.
And you could actually probably just use Microsoft Edge. Kind of run Edge as well, or you could probably do. There's a lot of things you could do basically.
No, I
get that
tried.
to run.
No, I tried Microsoft Edge because I've
Okay.
got my own browser installer. I used Edge. I used Google. Firefox is not compatible with. I tried all of those. It did not work on Arch Linux in that. So the last thing I thought of was Flatpak. Why, I don't know, because normally that's my second go-to, but I was just desperate to get this thing up and running because it did say you got to have Teams working for this interview. So I was in a bit of a panic because I thought that was going to be an easy thing, and yeah, it didn't quite work out the way I wanted it. So I took my main drive out, put the other drive in, and everything was fine. Then I took that drive out after I did Windows, put my main drive back in. That booted up no problem. But when I put both of them in and tried to actually select my drive from boot menu, then Windows corrupted my drive and I had to root back into my Arch Linux to get it to boot again, which is a nonsense because I hate doing that because I've got to remember all those, how to get back into it again. It's not something you do on a regular. So I've got it written down somewhere in the phone, so that was helpful. But it took me about 3 goes to get it going. Mount this, mount that. I think I mounted the wrong disk and whatever. So, or the wrong partition or whatever it is. But I've got it going again. So,
Well, that's good.
yeah. So Teams is a flat pack. There we go. Who would have thought?
And Schickle, you actually also volunteer that it's also a snap too, so you can install it as a snap.
Right.
Indeed,
okay.
for those Ubuntu users, it might come in handy.
For sure. So I did an article some time ago on my website where, because I work in a Microsoft shop full time, like my primary role is with Microsoft devices, but I'm slowly but surely changing whatever I can to Linux, specifically OpenSUSE or SUSE rather, and it's actually I'm in the middle of a project right now. I just got to get the I think it's called admin or something like that. It's for a PHP database administration stuff. Anyway, there's yeah, so I had to get seamlessly integrated. I tried using Windows as like just Windows, like for the first couple of months at the job, and I wasn't enjoying it. I wasn't having fun. I made my work laptop was a Linux machine, a Windows machine, and so I then, over a period of time, figured out how I can replace everything, like do everything in Linux, and so I'm there, and now I love my job a lot more. So just made things
You
just
haven't
more
found
enjoyable.
anything you couldn't get working?
Well, it depends on what you say couldn't get working.
Well, I mean, there just was no equivalent or some way, like there's no proprietary software you're using that requires any special.
So our NVR system uses an application called XProtect, which manages like all the views for all the cameras inside and outside of the facility. That I cannot get to work in Linux. I could run it in a VM. That's not a big deal. So if I really need it, typically that's all I have the Windows machine do. That's the only thing I need it to do. So since my office doesn't have any Windows in it, except the Windows machine, I put my view to the world. I actually created the most interesting view I could of different things, like watching them make butter or whatever, just so I can have like entertaining things, or also the parking lot because people slip and fall sometimes, and I shouldn't be entertained by that. But I did grow up on Three Stooges, so of course I find it entertaining.
Nate, do you mind if I ask, or do you use Active Directory in your workplace? Okay, and
Yep.
OpenSUSE hooks up with that nicely.
I can, yes, and I
sweet.
do, and I have, but I don't do it on my laptop for various reasons.
Okay, gotcha.
So what it is, instead I have it authenticate per device on its own, so because I have more flexibility that way. So I would never probably let other people do that. Actually, that's not true. There's actually a couple other, but I wouldn't encourage it, but it works well. So Dolphin has a way of managing the logins for different things quite nicely, and so it works really well. So
I think that says a lot, though, that you're able to do that. And I mean, that's always right. One of the arguments that people make that you can't switch. I mean, not only to Windows, but I mean, or from Windows to Linux, but even Mac or something like that, where there's a lot of stuff that's Windows only, or I mean, not as much as the difference between Linux and Windows, but still the fact that you can do that. And it's not like you're kind of doing a technical job. You're doing a very technical job, and the
Yeah,
fact that you can do
I'm
that is really cool.
the IT manager. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
There's
That's
nothing
awesome.
technical about that job. I mean, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's probably more spreadsheets and forecasting than it is a lot than it is actual technical work. Quite frankly,
Hmm.
That's technical stuff.
Yeah, I got to use a spreadsheet. And honestly, I have to say, the one Outlook is terrible. I know people like it, and what were we talking about? There's somewhere we were talking about this. Was this last week? How Outlook is the killer application? Who was saying that? Where was that being spoken about? Doesn't matter.
Not killer in a good way, I hope.
That must
Supposed to be
must
Excel.
have been after I left, I think.
Yeah, no, someone was
Outlook.
saying how Outlook is what people want. I don't know where this conversation was. Anyway, doesn't matter.
I'm not sure I've ever heard anyone say that.
It's like what executives like. I know, because Outlook is terrible. So because it doesn't do threaded messages, and I can't find a way to make it do threaded messages and all the things that I need. But I say Excel is the killer application. I use LibreOffice Calc regularly, but if I need to do anything that's really serious, it's going to be Excel. So, Excel
And
is.
you have to graduate from Excel to data frames.
Okay.
Data frames, you can use them in Python or any other language. It's very fast.
I'm sure it is, but if I provide somebody a Python something with data frames to do
They're
a
not
thing,
going to use it.
they're going to look at me like I got a lobster growing out of my forehead and it's slapping my giant nose on my face. So they're not going to.
You can provide them a CSV.
I could, and then they're going to be mad at me for that too because they don't know what a CSV is.
Their
opens in Excel.
notepad is going to explode.
It opens in Excel.
I mean, you're not technically wrong. I think you're probably. I mean, if you and I were working together, not a problem. But as soon as you give it to marketing or somebody else, they're going to look at it and be like, I don't want this. Go away. So, Wendy, welcome, and Sean, good to have you. It's been a while, Wendy, because you've been out building our replacements, I guess.
No, not building replacements, but I don't even remember the last time I've made it to Linux Saloon. And then, yeah, we're behind on Linux Out Louds because of me. So you're welcome.
It's not because of you. I couldn't make a certain week, and then Matt couldn't
Yeah.
make it, and then you can't make it, and so it's
Just craziness.
it's a layer. It's like a cake. It's a layered problem,
There you go. See, always a nice way to put it.
or like an onion, and it really stinks.
It could be worse, Wendy. It could be like a pizza.
No, pizzas are great. So, Colin, you didn't have to install Windows.
Yeah.
This is what it's boiling down to. Flatpak. Your answer's Flatpak.
But that's okay because I'm thinking about doing some videos on a journey to Linux, which was something I wanted to do a couple of years ago, but I've been so busy since. And it does involve Windows, so it might help me actually make that instead of doing it in a VM, I can do it on real hardware, and that's just part of the lead up to telling a bit of a story me leading into Linux. So yeah, that might just come in handy.
Could say it helps you to appreciate Linux, if nothing else.
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
Well, cool. All right. Well, I guess it's time for that straw poll. So today we're going to be doing a discussion about Ghostty. Is it Ghostty or is it Ghosty? What was it? I think Ghostty sounds better. I think that's what it's called on Destination Linux, isn't it? Ghostty.
Oh God.
Anyway, but
Ghosty, Ghosty.
what is it? The straw poll on what your experience was in what best describes your experience using Ghostty. So, take it away, Eris.
Ghosty. The people are voting now. Let me say, somebody say something. They said, I didn't find it to be any better than Kitty setup I currently use in terms of performance and features. So I don't have a reason to switch to it. I think that's about as replies or comments, I think.
We had
And
another reply from Magnus. Oh yeah, no, that was it. That was it. I'm sorry. Sorry.
That's fine. The number one answer for Ghosty, as far as which best describes your experience with Ghosty, is didn't have enough time, busy with work, busy with life. That was 24%, followed by 19% not interested in this exploration, and then followed by 14% it is okay. 14% did not have a good time with it. 10% not interested in doing explorations in general. 10% Tux Penguin. 5% it is amazing, and 5% it is good. Nobody voted other.
So I guess what it boils down to is when it comes to terminals, about 33% of those that would participate don't care. That's the takeaway from there. Oh well, what can you do?
So this is a like a 3D animation within the terminal, is it? Is that what it is?
Well, it's so
It's a terminal that's GPU accelerated, and it uses GTK,
Oh,
so
it's
it
an
has
actual
like
terminal. Oh,
yeah, it has like
Oh,
the
okay.
GTK decorations on top, the client side
Right.
server decorations.
I have to say, when it comes to terminal, really, if people are in the terminal, I have to think that they're in there for a reason and they want some type of focus. So maybe it's too distracting if there's too much other stuff within it.
Like I've used
Maybe
it.
that's
I
why.
don't think there's too much other stuff. It's like a normal terminal. And
Is
maybe
it?
that's
Okay.
why it doesn't make it stand out among others. Like I've tried some configurations. Configuring it was pretty easy. The hardest part for me to get it to install properly. That's another, we can talk about it later. But overall, the experience was normal. Again, I'm not an advanced terminal user, so maybe it's not for me, but overall, it was a normal terminal experience.
Yeah, my
I've seen
experience.
something.
Oh, go on.
No, go on. No, that's all right.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say my experience with it is I mean it seems like it's relatively early in development. I mean like we're on like I think they just released like version 1.1 recently or 1.10 something like that.
The 30th.
Yeah, so fairly early version numbers. Um it is for the most part just a terminal. Like if you need a terminal, it will do the job. GPU acceleration is useful in situations where you do want to render or the processes you're doing render a lot of text and you don't want the rendering of that text to be what slows it down. The thing is that there's like a point of diminishing returns, right? Like if you're just running like sudo zipper dupe, it's not really gonna do anything. Like it's just gonna run like normal. You're not really gonna notice difference. If you've got, tens of thousands of lines of stuff moving by as you're compiling things or as you're moving stuff around, then it can actually make a difference in the time it takes for those things to run because what tends to happen in a lot of typical terminal emulators is that at some point the rendering of the text is slower than the actual process itself. So for basic stuff, really doesn't matter. For really, really big jobs, you could actually start shaving, seconds to minutes off of a process being completed. However, I had some kind of quirks with it. If I ran like really large operations through it, sometimes it would just start glitching out. And when I would go to type stuff into the terminal after a couple of runs, and then I would backspace, the characters wouldn't backspace. I would then like write through existing characters. So the more complexity you introduce by like GPU rendering and stuff like that, the more quirks and bugs you might experience, like weird visual glitches and things like that. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, so I guess we'll get. I guess we're right into it. So how did those that Rant installed it, how did you install it? What did you use? Like native packages or something else?
I installed it through Flake.
Is that
Nix
like a
Flake. Nix,
is it,
it's
that's
a
a
Nix
Nix
Flake.
thing, right? Okay. All
Yeah.
right. A special Nix thing.
Well, they do have it in the official repository, but I had trouble installing that, so this was kind of the fallback method to install it.
Okay.
And it's fine. It's a good, I would say it's a good terminal emulator, but there's nothing really about it that stands out to me. That makes me say I would use this over my existing terminal emulator, which is the one from GNOME KTX. And the nice thing I like about that is the title bar will change colors depending on the operation that you're doing. So if you're doing something as root or with super user privileges, the title bar will turn red so that you know you're doing something potentially dangerous. You'll also change to like purple if you SSH into another system. And I just find that visual feedback kind of really useful. I wish more emulators would do that.
Yeah, that's actually a really neat idea. Like I never thought of having like SSH sessions have a different color, but that's a really neat idea, really, to do that. I wouldn't have thought of that.
I think it's called Pytixis or something like that. The one that Fedora uses by default. I think it also the header bar turns red if you're running as root or if you're as like a super user, and so it's a pretty cool concept.
Yeah,
I
like
think an easier way to accomplish that is through a prompt. So I use Starship, and when it's root, it automatically turns red. So that's very easy because you're staring at it all the time. So if it is red, it's root.
So I just heard about Starship on the last Linux Matters podcast, and if anybody listens to that,
Such a good one.
Yeah. So they're talking. Martin Wimpers was talking about how he uses Starship. He everyone to switch to something, and now Starship. I don't know what it is, but the fact that with Starship you can set up rules so that instead of having the full like name or whatever, you can have it do like emoticons or whatever icons instead.
Yep,
So if you instead of your home directory, it has like a house. What was it called?
Yes. These are called nerd fonts and nerd icons. So you need
nerdicons.
A terminal emulator which supports nerd fonts,
nerd fonts.
Then you need to install those nerd fonts, and then you can't use Starship without nerd fonts. Yeah.
So
we can talk later, or we can do an exploration next week.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I think maybe to mess with Starship. I don't know, is Starship its own thing, or is it like instead of like using Fish or Bash, it's
it's its own thing. It's it's compatible across Fish.
I would describe
Bash,
it as like a prompt modifier. So like you can use it with
Okay.
any shell, but it changes the way that the shell appears.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I've been using it since like 2021. So yeah,
Okay.
really good.
So you could use Starship within
Ghostty.
and
I did
with
that.
Ghostty or okay. So that's pretty neat. Did anybody play with any of the configuration?
Yeah, I can talk
functions?
about it.
Okay,
Before that, I'll explain my install process.
Okay.
As we were talking throughout the week in the Telegram chat, I'm running a new Windows on ARM chip. It's Snapdragon Elite X 78, and I don't have any Linux distribution, so I'm running WSL on ARM. And I managed to get like a rootfs for Arch ARM, and then I modified it to an NWS install with our ARM repos, and then I tried to install Ghostty using AUR. Didn't work. I've tried a couple of times, it didn't work, and I was like, I didn't have enough energy during the week to debug why it didn't work. And today I somehow found the energy. So it has a dependency called pandoc, and pandoc is always iffy on ARM. I managed to install it properly. Maybe it's how the AUR package was written. I think I would have done it a better way to prevent all this happening. And then yeah, I managed to compile and install Pandoc, and then Ghostty compiled pretty well. It took a long time. It took like 23 minutes on a Raspberry Pi. So it's a huge program, I guess. And yeah, so that's how I managed to install it, and it worked pretty well out of the box. And regarding configuration, there's a nice button in the setting. Like if you go to the menu, there's a nice button there which says Open Configuration File. And if you click on that, it'll take your text editor in which you can edit the configuration. And then in that text, a config file, there's also a link to the documentation online where it provides you all the configuration options. So it was really convenient. And then after you save, there's also a button again in Ghostty called Reload Configuration. So some configurations you can't apply unless you quit and reload. Others you can apply directly. So I think configuration-wise is like really good. It's been because for most other things like Alacrity and other things, it's like there's no button, there's no menus. You have to know where the configuration file is, even for Western. But I think this is good. It's more an intuitive way. Okay, there's a menu, there's a configuration file. Just you click on it to open the configuration file in a text editor. I've tried configurations of like window size, font, because I told you, right? I need nerd font for my Starship. So I had to set up font. It was pretty easy. I changed the font size. It was pretty easy. Yeah, it's pretty configurable, but it doesn't stand out by itself, but only those buttons stand out.
So I think you probably get the prize for having worked the hardest to get it installed. So congratulations. I don't know what that is besides maybe a round of applause from everybody. So well done. I would have probably quit a long time ago based just on that. Did anybody here run it on an immutable operating system? You did? So you went through the process. What Silverblue?
Yeah, I ran it on Silverblue.
So that seemed like a pretty involved process as well.
It was honestly, and I will praise immutable distros up and down for a lot of things, but the most annoying thing typically is that like any tiny change you make, you end up rebooting, which is the bane. I mean, if you want those uptime numbers, it's crushing. Thankfully, though, RPM OS Tree has a flag that you can use. It's tac applied -live or something like that. So when you run RPM OS Tree install on anything, it'll actually build the OS tree, but also on the live system let you like use those packages without a reboot. So it still stages everything to be properly configured and installed when you reboot next, but it allows you to use them in kind of like a little like sub layer before you reboot. So it actually saved me a little bit.
Yeah, I was just looking at the instructions for setting up in Silverblue and Silverblue and other immutable variants. And
Yeah.
I thought that was like, wow, that's you got to work on that one too. That's like Servan level of work there as well.
It's weird. I would say 99% of the time, you probably shouldn't install something like this on something like like if you're using Silverblue, you probably don't want this on your base system. Like, because kind of the ideal thing is that like that's for like core system stuff. So it's just not worth it.
Gotcha. Then the Nix method, also like the Nix flake method, that also seemed, was it as complicated in that for you, Sean? Is what was written
No,
out? Probably to you.
It's not very complicated at all. It's like it's just a one line Nix profile install, and then the path to the flake, and that's it.
So not as much as what they specify in the instructions.
I'm sorry. It's rather. I find it rather easy to do that, but yeah, nothing terribly complicated.
Gotcha. Okay. I don't know. I just looking at. I was kind of hoping there would be a flat pack for it, but I guess that's not.
There's an app image.
Okay,
But the
I
app
see.
image also had problems under Nix. So.
Okay, I didn't try the app image. Maybe I should have, just to try it. So, all right. Now, Cruz, you have. Did you give it a try?
No, Nate. No,
Okay.
Nate.
That's all right.
But here, Happy New Year.
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. It's probably the best you've sounded in a long time.
Yeah, work had me.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Now the I'll go ahead and say like I installed it using the just Zipper. It's actually I did it with OPI, but it's just Zipper. It's right in the main OpenSUSE Tumbleweed repositories, so it worked out pretty well for me. And my personal favorite feature was the overview of tabs. I know it's probably not a big deal. I think I could feel the collective eye rolls in the Telegram when I shared that. But for me, I thought it was really cool because if you click on the little little boxes thing, you can see all the different terminals you have open, and you can just kind of click and go into it. I know it's probably not a big deal, but it kind of reminded me like the overview of a desktop. So if you have multiple applications going, you can just jump into it just visually. And I thought that was a really neat feature because as much as, you can see the tabs, what they are, having that ability to just like overview and then go into it, I thought was extremely handy. And I like that aspect. So what you got, Saran?
Yeah, I forgot to tell about it. That was a really good feature. Like, especially for people with too many tabs.
Yes.
Like, that's really awesome. Like, I forgot to mention that about. Yeah, good find.
So
I am
Keegan
curious.
the Tennessean says it sounds spooky. Go ahead, Ghosty sounds spooky. It is true. It does. Oh, I'm sorry. And then go ahead. I interrupted you. Sugar.
No, you're good. I think I have some lag on my end. I'm downloading an ISO. Sorry.
No worries.
I with that overview thing, does it show? Because I completely neglected to test that. If there's processes like actively running, does it show them all rendered live, or is it like screenshots of them from their last state open?
I don't know. I'll find out right now.
Because
I'm curious.
it'd be cool if it shows a live preview.
Because that would be pretty cool. All right, so it looks like it's just a screenshot. I don't see it updating.
That's probably a performance consideration, to be fair.
Yeah, probably.
That's pretty neat, though.
It's still. I mean, that would have made it a lot cooler. But it's still, I can see. I just ran btop just for kicks. Oh, wait a minute.
I'd have 10 different versions of top.
No, it does. It does update it. Just not right away, not immediate. It is updating at a lower rate.
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah. So that is pretty cool. Anyway, I think that was my favorite feature by far. Savan, you said you had the configuration thing. Just open up a text file, like you should just open Kate, whatever my editor was of choice, and you could throw anything I wanted in there. But it didn't include like a boilerplate though. Mine didn't. I don't know but yours did.
No, it didn't, but it had a link to the documentation. Yeah, I just clicked on it. It took me to the browser with full documentation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I looked at the documentation.
So, yeah, I have the criticism too. There's no boilerplate, but there's a random text in it. I didn't read it properly, but it's probably bogus. But yeah, they should have either had a boilerplate or a very small one with the link. But I found the link, so it's very easy. I don't need to search for documentation. I just clicked on it.
Yeah, but otherwise, I think if they would have put like just some examples of different things with some descriptions to like remove the remove the comment out or whatever, that I think would have probably enhanced the experience a little bit. But I mean, outside of that'd be my only real criticism for it, at least for me. I mean, I can set up a configuration file, but like I want to know what they think are the coolest features that you can add or flip or whatever. Like what the people who have developed this think certain features that they might find to be most exciting about it. I think I would have liked to have seen that besides just reading through the documentation and telling you kind of what all the different ways to do things. It didn't really sell me in that portion of it. Like sell some ideas through that. So I know you're probably not supposed to and documentation is supposed to be dry and boring, but that hasn't always been the case in Linux. Usually documentation should be funny. So, Anybody
far
else
as
have any
the-
thoughts? You go ahead. I'm sorry.
As far as the configuration goes, they just use basically a key value pair, for this equals this, through the configuration, which is kind of nice. I mean, it's a lot of people, a lot of projects will do a much more advanced configurations. They might put it into a JSON file or YAML file, and just to have a very nice, clean, this variable equals this result is, I find kind of refreshing.
Yeah, it was very, very easy to obviously make modifications to it, for sure. Are you something you think you're going to keep using, John? Do you think you'll keep this around and keep it like play with it some more?
Probably not. I mean, I really don't have a use for like 5 terminal emulators on my system. I have a use for one, and as long as that works, I don't have a problem with just using that. So.
Okay, that's fair.
Speaking of configuration, there's one thing good about it. There is no need to have quotes or double quotes. You can just write text. That's really convenient, at least for people who keep forgetting quotes.
Yeah. Also, no, you don't have to end it with a semicolon too. That's also nice.
I have nuked like huge backup repositories by not using quotes, so I am one of those people.
Yeah, I get it.
I didn't do anything of the sort, but yeah, I understand your plight.
Yeah, I just tried installing it through AUR and had the same problem. It comes up with a massive amount of errors. So, like Sravan said, it doesn't install.
It's on
through that.
X64 too? Wow. Yeah. I think the package manager is bad. We shouldn't blame Ghostty for it.
Yeah.
I'll probably flag it.
Yeah, these things happen. They even have Gen 2. I bet you run Gen 2. Ben, you run Gen 2, right? Do you install Ghostty? Getty. Do you install Ghostty on Gen 2?
I did not. No,
Do you want to try it live?
I've been waiting.
Go
on.
ahead and try it live. Here, I'll put
Jesus.
I'll
Okay,
copy and
hold
paste
on.
it right in there. So you can just, if you look in the chat, you can just
Emerge
install
Ghostty.
emerge tac av Ghostty. I put
Don't-
it right in the
All
chat.
right.
Don't give in
how
to
it
peer
goes right
pressure.
now.
Don't give in to peer pressure.
Oh, jeez, guys.
So if it kills
All
your
right.
system,
All
I
right.
want you to tell
me a
us
few
by
minutes.
letting your display freeze and then you falling off the
All right.
the panel.
Oh, and I did enable the feature called Candy, so it's sort of like, where Pac-Man does that little Pac-Man character going across the screen.
Uh-huh.
I enabled that
candy.
in my oh god, it's masked. You gotta be kidding me.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I haven't.
Now that I'm caught up with Ghost,
Go ahead.
now that I'm caught up with Ghosty, I have to admit I made a massive assumption when I seen the thumbnail on the Linux Saloon. I thought it was like a NeoFetch or something like that. That's why I said talked about distractions. I had no idea because I left early last week. So you guys hadn't spoken about this by the time I had left. So I just made some sort of assumption. So I didn't realize it was just a normal terminal emulator. And we need to have a new terminal with the new name that Shickle came up with, the Termulator. I think that sounds awesome. Somebody needs to make
Terminator.
up something like that. The Termulator.
Termulator.
And then when it
sounds good, Shickle.
And then when it starts up, you hear, "Come with me if you want to live."
This can be
that's it.
arranged.
And when you quit, it'll be like, I'll be back.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be back.
Or it can cycle through that and also hasta la vista, baby.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh snap! It's gonna be several packages while this compiles.
No, that's fine. I'm okay with that. This will be
But
part of
yeah,
the fun of Linux Saloon.
when it's done, I'll take my turn. So
Yeah, no, it'll be fine. Even if we move on, we can come right back to it.
we
that's
can
no
come
big
back
deal.
to me. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
it's a big deal. So, did anybody else have
Hold
anything
on.
they want to say about
11
Ghostty?
packages.
Like any other thoughts? Just a general.
Like,
Yeah.
every like 2-3 years something new comes up, and sometimes it's good. Like new terminal emulators rather than the standard ones which are shipped with distros. Like I think Westom was the previous one. I liked it, and I still use it.
Which
So
one? I'm
do
sorry.
you think like Ghosty will catch up to people? Or is it like
Which
that
one?
different?
Which one are you using, Shravan? Did you say?
Western, Wezterm.
I don't know that one.
It's a terminal in Rust. It has like
Western.
minimal configuration, and also it's very minimalistic. It's pretty fast. It's cross-platform. That's the main thing for me. Because
Oh,
I
I see.
need the same workflow in Linux and also Windows. So
You see,
it's pretty good.
what I did is
Yeah,
I just
go ahead.
installed OpenSUSE on my Windows machine, like the WSL, and then I had the exact same workflow, so it worked out great.
Yeah, I do the same thing. Like basically Arch, like Arch-Arm WSL, same thing.
And then I installed Ocular for PDF viewer, and then Kate for my text editor, and then also I installed Dolphin, and it's really close to being perfect, but there's a couple things you just can't do in Dolphin in Windows, so like you can't map a drive. So, and I can't browse a drive either, which is a problem because it doesn't have SMB, whatever, the KIO slave thing. So, anyway, whatever.
I
So-
use Ocular. I think it's good.
Yeah, I think it's great in Windows. Now, Shikla, you gonna say something?
Not attached to Ghosty specifically, but I forgot to mention it before we did. I just wanted to share. I mentioned the whole Mastodon thing a bit back, and I received a gift from somebody very special to me that also supports Mastodon, and I just wanted to share the love. I think it's a great open source project, and this thing is also really, really cute. So, yes, I hope to collect many more open source mascots. So, the OpenSUSE Chameleon's actually next on my list, but
That's a good one.
yeah, I've been over the moon, absolutely losing my mind over this thing. He's so rotund.
Is it the term like a kawaii or something like that? The Japanese term
Yes.
for yes, yep.
I would describe it as kawaii for sure.
Kawaii. Japanese.
I do like that. The whole like that kawaii look of things. It's fun and welcoming and just fun, I think. So I wanted to contrast my Ghosty experience with some other terminals we've worked with. So do you remember the Wave terminal? Does anybody remember that one that we did? This is a while ago. Was anybody a part of that? Just remember sometime last year. So
No.
Wave is another. It was like people talked about it, I guess, for a little bit. And what was neat about that one is kind of how it keeps its chat history and the fact that you can run your commands by through the little AI assistant as well as you're doing it. And so I thought that was really handy because it had a specific feature that was beneficial. Now I haven't continued to use Wave because I didn't need to, I guess. But I thought it had some very neat, very interesting features for how you it was a different way of doing terminal, I guess. And so I think Ghosty is a little bit more like any other terminal, but it had some, I think the overview feature, I think was very cool. And I think if I were doing a lot of maybe compiling in the shell, I can see where that would be for the GPU acceleration. But I'm not doing that. But anyway, so I just thought, comparing other shells, like what would make me switch to Ghosty. I don't know that has, as much as I like that overview, I don't know that's compelling enough because my cursor gets larger when I go over it, probably because of the scaling thing. Because I'm using Plasma, so I don't know if that's a problem. But did anybody else have like the cursor like gonna get large over that's using Plasma on Ghosty? Yeah, I mean it's not awful, but it's a little
I
little
think
jarring.
it's a GTK4 bug. There is a way to semi-fix it. I'll send you. It's literally just like a quick deconf setting that basically just resets the cursor thing. So when you hover over some GTK apps, they'll just look normal again. I'll send that to you.
Oh, cool. Yeah, because there's a couple other GTK apps that are little goofy like that. Not all of them. So, do you have here have any like preferred terminal applications that you think that you use? Yeah. Well, Ben, you can't say yet because you have to install Ghostty first.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Oh goodness.
I want to hear you talk about Ghostty. So, how's it coming? Is it compiling? Is it working?
It's on 7 of 11. It's getting this Zig dependency right now. I'll speak up when it's done.
Okay. So Wendy, I know you didn't. You probably.
So we're
didn't
gonna have to talk to him next week.
We are gonna have to. Yeah. No, I think it's 7 of 11. I think it should be done.
Yeah, it's on 15 out of 18 code things for Zig. So hopefully it'll get done. Oh,
In the next
oh,
hour.
speaking of the devil, it just got to the last one.
Oh, good.
Hopefully by, towards the end of the show, we should have something for me to say.
Okay, well, you're not selling me on Gentoo, just so you know.
I just installed.
Well, that's because it doesn't have a binary package yet.
Yeah, I know. So Wendy, I know you use a terminal. I know like Matt, our friend, doesn't like doing anything with a terminal. So do you have any like terminal environment preferences? Like, do you have any like, or do you like, is console just fine? You just kind of go with it, or is there any specific features you use?
Yeah, I use console all the time. Like that's pretty much the only one I use at this point because Plasma is about the only thing that I run, and I don't actually remember any other terminals too much. But yeah, I mean, nothing special. I'm typically just updating or installing packages, so I don't like live in the terminal.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
It's funny. I use the terminal quite a lot, but I also like it pretty much only as a drop-down terminal.
Yes.
So I don't like just having a terminal on my desktop or as a floating window. I like to have it anchored as a drop-down. And in there, so, if I'm using either one that is built into GNOME or, something like that, I can use tabs and do different things. But I guess I've just never come across a situation where I needed, and I mean, this is with 5, 6 tabs open doing different things on different servers. I guess I've just never found the reason to care about different terminal emulators. Like, honestly, it's just not one of those things that's interesting to me. So, I mean, I kind of think it's neat that you can do that you get a tab overview where it shows each thing as a tab, except it's too small to even see anyway. So it doesn't really do anything more than just having an actual tab, because these aren't really tabs so much as an overview of the tabs, I guess. Anyway, I am sure, as others have said, that there is a use for not only this, but all the myriad other terminal emulators that I've run across. But I mean, a shell is more interesting. Like if you're using Fish or ZSH or like some other shell is interesting, but the terminal emulator itself, I guess, is just sort of kind of a boring thing. I'm not trying to take away. I'm just saying it's funny because if you have a note-taking app, I'll try 100 of those. I'll never get sick of trying those.
Right. No, I get it.
But yeah, there's just something about an emulator that doesn't really do much for me.
So I have to say, I use the drop down, and I could not. I don't think I would like to function without it now at this point. Like it's kind of because I have it tied to F12, and I just quickly hit it and it drops down and do what I need to do. Then I make it go away. But when I'm doing certain tasks that I'm very terminal heavy, I do that in a separate floating terminal, and because it's just easier that way. And I'll use the drop down for just specific system tasks. Like if I need to like set up to hop into a jump box so I can do other tasks that are within a specific location or whatever. That I can jump into that box, and then I can do whatever I need to do elsewhere. And anyway, so I use this kind of like I don't even know how to describe it, but like kind of like my quick. I gotta do something quick, whatever thing. Oh, Das Geek, he says, "Hey yo, hey yo."
Oh boy, he's here.
I don't know what "hey yo" is. Is that like a hi? Is that what the cool kids say instead of hi?
It's a copyright-free Outcast parody instead of "Hey
Oh, okay, I see. Nicely played. That was a quick reach. Yeah, because you can't say "hey yo" without a copyright strike, right? Is that how it goes? Yeah. Got it. So, yeah, where's it going with that? I don't know. I lost my train of thought. Anybody else have anything to say about terminals? Got distracted by the whole "hey yo."
Recently, I've been using KDE a bit more lately, or Plasma rather, a little more lately. So console's been something I've been getting some experience with. I'm weird with terminals. Like I do have a bunch of them open in floating windows, and I almost wish, like the idea of tiling or like having tiled terminals in a window like doesn't work for me. I don't know why. So like I have them scattered around, and I'm like alt tabbing through them to get to the right one, which is probably really inefficient. I almost wish there was like a desktop plugin for KDE that was just for console that would kind of like workspace like show me just console windows. There probably is a way to do that now that I think about it, but
There probably is, yeah.
yeah. I think that would probably be ideal for me. I got to figure that out.
Yeah, I think console with fish has kind of been my jam lately because I like the way it breaks things down by color. I like the coloring in it.
It's so good.
It really is.
Shikul, have you tried something called Byobu? BYOBU.
I've heard of it, but the last time I heard of it was like 2 years ago, so I don't remember what it is.
Try it and get back to me. I think it'll work for you.
What was it called?
I've seen that one.
It's called Byobu. BYOBU. There's another popular app based on it called Hollywood. Have you heard of Hollywood?
Yes.
Yes, Hollywood is based on Byobu. Same author.
Okay. Okay.
I recognize this now. This is sick.
T-Mux.
I think this is a better version of it. Like, I have a lot of virtual machines. Not a lot, some virtual machines, and also machines which run Linux virtually, like WSL. So Byobu is a really good thing for me because I can't open multiple emulators because there's only one screen through SSH most of the time. And Byobu is really good. It has really good key bindings, intuitive key bindings. It doesn't interfere with other tasks. So yeah, try it out. We can probably talk later on Telegram.
Oh, actually, I think it'd be neat. Let's put that on the another application thing to try out because obviously terminals are a Linux Saloon favorite based on the last Strawpoll. So yeah, let's put that on the list of things for sure.
Yeah, I haven't been using Linux a lot, but most of the time I'm in the terminal, so I've found like a whole bunch of terminal-centric things. I have a whole list of them.
Oh, that's cool. Awesome. Anything else? Do you think there's anything else we can talk about, or we beat this horse to its Well, actually, Ben, how do you do on that?
I would just say that it is a rather difficult task to get people excited about terminal emulators in general. You know, it's hard to stand out. It's like, here's a terminal emulator. Yay. Now what? Yeah. Okay. Type things.
Shrug. Aren't we trying to move people away from terminal emulators?
No.
Would I want my
Only the
father
new ones,
using?
right?
Would I want my father like using a terminal emulator on a regular basis? No.
The last time I got interested in a terminal emulator was when I think wasn't it Windows that put out like an emulator that was like a real terminal instead of just their stupid command prompt or something like that, and it was like a really nice little well-designed, UI.
Yeah,
And
it's got tabs, it's got
yeah,
GPU acceleration,
yeah.
and I believe you actually have like profiles and sessions and stuff like that as well.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's
and
pretty
that was
sweet.
interesting because Windows has historically had such a terrible terminal emulators, so that was just like, this is a kind of a neat thing. And it was open source, I believe, as well, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
the
yeah,
good thing
terminal.
about Windows Terminal is you have a bunch of profiles. Like you can have different shells in those
Mhm.
profiles. Like let's say you have a profile for PowerShell, you have a profile for command prompt. So it's a simple drop-down box when you add a new tab. And also there's profiles for WSL. Let's say you have Ubuntu WSL, Arch WSL, some Kali Linux WSL. You can have profiles for each of these and directly open tabs and log on to Linux. No need for any command. You can directly open a tab and you get WSL. And you can do the same for SSH too. I haven't tried it. I prefer like typing SSH, the machine name, but you can have profile for SSH too.
Yeah, the repository's on GitHub because it's open source. So, yeah, and I remember when that came out because it's been, I don't know, 5 years or more probably. That was interesting. That was like, wow, because that was when I think the first WSL came out around that same period. And if you say it's more than 5 years, it's okay. I won't cry because everything was 5 years ago, whether it was 20 or 15 or.
Yep.
I think it also has like advanced like graphics and not like GPU acceleration, but like you can make it like glass windows with like see-through and like frosted like it's like a weird thing that they did, but cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah,
there
it
you go.
works on x86-64, but not on ARM yet. It's developmental in ARM. Transparency.
Gotcha. So yeah, that's probably the last time that I saw a terminal and was like, wow, look at that. I never actually used it because I don't really use Windows, but I at least thought it was interesting.
So I think for me, the thing I like about terminal emulators is when they are kind of basic though too. Because I don't want a lot of fluff necessarily. I don't want to cloud or crowd my area, which is kind of why Wave didn't work well for me personally. I like the simplicity that console provides, and actually I've used Tmux in the past, and actually not too distant. In fact, I should probably do it again for managing like creating like a terminal desktop, I guess you could say. So I set up a session on a remote machine with Tmux, and I can attach and detach from that quite nicely and get the different little features I want. So Tmux within the terminal, I think, is pretty tight, as the kids would say. So anyway.
Nate, I have to pick your brain while we're on terminals and console specifically,
Okay.
especially as an OpenSUSE user. There is a terminal super user mode entry in my menu by default. It's like so when I type terminal, the first result that comes up is that and not console. How do you know any way that I can hide or remove that?
No.
Nice.
It's the second one when I type it.
It's always the first one for me. I wonder if I have to train the launcher to remember which one I want.
Yeah, for me, I think it goes in order of, I think what I've last. No, that doesn't do that either because otherwise Wave would be higher. I don't know. I think there's a way that you can hide them, but I'm not sure. Because
Are you talking specifically in KDE Plasma?
Yeah.
If you right click on the launcher and select edit applications, you can edit the applications that show up in the launcher.
That's no way. Oh, that's what that does. KDE has everything, man. This is crazy. Oh yeah, there it is. I could just turn that off. That's incredible. Wow. You saved my whole workflow because I've been
You should have made Sickle work for it.
Oh man. I'm over here recompiling stuff I don't need to recompile.
Well, there you go. Problem solved. Well, all right. I guess we'll hop into the housekeeping. Talk about next week. So next week is going to be it's going to be an open mic night. So
open mic, hell yeah.
So that means that if you have a song you'd like to sing or some jokes you'd like to tell, that's what we do here at the Linux.
Oh snap!
And by that I mean probably neither. So yeah, open mic night next week. Nothing really to plan for, other than if you have any suggestions, please share them to suggestions@linuxsaloon.com or whatnot. But any suggestions for anything. So if it's discussion suggestions, distribution, application, poll ideas, anything you got, always welcome suggestions. Like I've personally sent a suggestion that I should talk less and someone else should talk more than me. All right. So moving on from there.
Yes.
We had
Nate, I have one thing to say about Ghosty, and is it
installed?
No, it's compiling right now.
Oh, okay.
Sorry it took like over half the topic, but
no, it's okay.
I started late on it.
Because we can come, we'll check in on you.
Yeah, we'll just have to.
Interesting.
We can shelve it till next week. I don't care.
No, I thought it was slow on ARM, but it's slow on normal computers.
It's slow on normal x86 as well. But luckily, Jonas showed up on the YouTube chat, so it's all good.
And everybody is safe.
Yes,
right.
We're all safe. Crap happens. I'm just.
Our computers are not.
At least we got some entertainment off of her, so it's all good.
So we have some filler subjects, and we're going to hop into this first one here. Now, Eris did put this in the list. So after 18 years, Sony's recordable Blu-ray media production draws to a close. So it'll shut down the last factory in February. Is anybody concerned about this?
Sony? That's the Blu-ray part. I thought it was the PlayStation part. Nope, I'm not worried.
But now it's specifically they're ending the recordable Blu-ray disc media production in February, marking the end of nearly 2-decade run. So this ends production, which will affect mini disc recording as well. So any of you who are still using mini discs, you better buy them now. So I see the collective sadness on everybody's faces. So I guess this is not a big deal. Yes,
I have some thoughts on this. Like the Blu-ray when it initially came out, like it was exciting. It's like there's so much data you can put because it was a huge jump from DVDs, and then suddenly we got SSDs, everything. Like we got removable storage, and we got cloud, and it's like Blu-rays never took off. Like it was supposed to be the next thing after DVDs, but after DVDs we got everything else.
But does I don't know if I think I remember hearing that Blu-rays can last a long time if you keep things on them. Yeah.
I don't know.
Don't they have a really long?
I know that CDs had a delamination issue sometimes. I don't know if Blu-ray have the same. Excuse me. Have the same issue.
I would imagine that it would have similar issues based on the physical makeup of media. I don't know. I mean, you might want to stock up on them as people have been trying to find floppy disks for old computers for a while now. So they might be worth something in the future. Who knows?
So I guess Maybe you need to buy all your Blu-ray writables if you have a Blu-ray writable device, maybe.
Or just port them in the anticipation that they will go up in value, right?
So, so according to this article, it says if stored properly, optical media could be viable for decades, which makes it an ideal medium for long-term cold storage. While Sony is no longer making recordable Blu-ray media, its competitor Pioneer has found niche in long-term storage and created a Blu-ray disc designed to last 100 years. So if that's
that's what I thought.
Well, there are actually like two sides of that coin. Not only that the media can last, but can the device that reads that media survive in the future?
Point.
Right?
That's a good point.
Or is it like, yeah? I mean, is it going to be like, hey, we have these discs, but we can't, all the drives are dead now, right?
Oh, sure,
That
the standard
internal belt that always wears out on all of them, and we can't get replacements for them anymore. Right?
Well, that and then the software as well. So maybe you have the hardware, but the format of a file from that long ago is meaningless because there's nothing that even remembers what it is. Or if it is, it's so, far removed and academic at that point that it's, either an extremely specialized service, right? I mean, these are going to be problems that we just haven't heard of before or had to deal with. Like when you say something's supposed to last 100 years, how has it been 100 years? Do you know that it'll actually last 100 years? I mean, you're estimating that it will, but who knows if it actually will. And then if that disc even survives, okay, great. To your point, do you have the Blu-ray, drive? Does that drive even interface to a computer anymore? Because there's nothing as, whatever bus that it was using doesn't exist anymore. You know what I mean? Like all these things are going to change by the time you'd even get there. Is the data even relevant? It's curious to me to like, what is going to be, you think about like previously throughout history, things were physical. You had a clay tablet, or you had parchment, or you had books, or you had something that you could point to and you could say, this was a thing. Data is so, ethereal, like it doesn't even exist, right? And so like at some point in the future, if it's not stored somewhere, and we've already seen this with like movies and things that have been selectively forgotten about, music, like it just doesn't exist, right? And maybe that's not the worst thing in the world, but it is interesting to me to think that, because my daughter the other day thought she lost her photos, and she's like, that was years of my life in photos. And it's like, yeah, because they're just files on a server somewhere.
I think another interesting facet of this too is that like, even if like, let's say like you have a data set that you're trying to keep alive, or you have a format that you're trying to keep alive, there's always the human sort of level of failure where it's like you don't think about a specific thing that you should have tried to retain. So there's a lot of instances of stuff where it's like, does anybody have a copy of this thing that we're now suddenly looking for? And it's like, no, because nobody thought to even do it. Which is, there's just so much data too. Like, what do you back up and what don't you back up? It's
true.
It's this impossible task of just chasing down like every bit of data that exists.
Yep.
Well, they run into this a
the
lot
only thing
on the retro computing channels that they'll need the schematics for a motherboard, and they have to like track it down, or they need to figure out what the dip switches do on this particular video card. And aside from like trial and error, it's very useful to have those original manuals, but a lot of those original manuals just don't exist anymore. If they do, eventually maybe somebody will scan it and put it up on like an archive site for people. But a lot of that original technical documentation just like has vanished over the years.
Oh yeah, and a lot of it was paper based, right? So if it was even if it was a computer, it was a paper based manual. So
Oh, sure.
yeah, and if you don't have that piece of paper, or if it was never scanned or something, no, I mean, it is just going to be an interesting situation to think like, I guess historically, if I think of my grandparents or something, if they were trying to show me pictures, like they would have an album, some physical representation of it. And, you know, if you if you think of your life now, presuming we live, some more decades, at some point, like if you're using Apple Photos or Google, or if you've got your own hosted solution, like it can't either continue to grow exponentially. I mean, maybe, I guess, as the data storage standards go up, so does that. But something I've run into, which isn't necessarily bit rot, I backed up movies years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And so some of the files I have are 480, very low quality. And I go back to watch those movies now and I'm like, oh, this is terrible. So now I have to figure out how to get a newer copy of that.
No, you use AI and you upscale it with AI upscalers. That's
oh, is that how that works?
That's how we do it now. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, those movies were also released at a time when that format was common. So to like truly experience it in the way it was meant to be experienced, you'd have to like find a monitor or whatever of that same era to feel it. I mean, with with CRTs, you had the scan lines and the blurriness from that made somehow that picture seemed acceptable at the time. But you put it on an LCD display, and you're like, that. What's that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think Eric, you mentioned bitrot for a second there, and I think it's a really important, like fascinating thing. But like, even the largest companies in the world cannot escape data degradation. Like there are YouTube videos from years ago that like if you pull them up now, like some of them just have serious issues wrong with them. There's like real corruption on some of these videos, where it's like it just is like that now because something happened somewhere and the data is not the way that it once was. And like this is a multi-trillion dollar company that even they can't keep things in perfect condition. So
yeah. Well, we've seen it a lot. I mean, the analog to this would be film, right? Because moving pictures started in the, late 1800s, early 1900s, and they would find this cache of film somewhere that was literally, degrading to a point where you couldn't really trust that you could play it anymore. And there were a lot of efforts to save things like that to, in a historical archive. And I mean, you have the Library of Congress and sites like archive.org. And I think of YouTube just as a general example. Everybody uses YouTube obviously for their personal stuff, but then you've got all of this, like people have put back like old broadcast television, old game shows, like just all this like old stuff that where else would it possibly live except for a platform like YouTube? And it's just a company. It's just a service. Is that service going to be around forever? Like what happens one day if, and probably when, YouTube isn't a thing anymore? And you've just got, collectively like what thousands of years worth of data footage, or video footage on this platform that just goes away.
No, it was all ingested by Odyssey.
Yeah.
No.
Well, this reminds me of I don't know if you guys remember, you probably do, years back. I'm going to say 5 years and go with Eric's metric here. It was only 5 years ago. The Wham music video for was it Last Christmas? Was released in 4K.
Yep.
And that was because somewhere they had the actual film and were able to rescan it and like properly master it in 4K. But somebody had to be in charge of keeping that film safe. And if that film had been damaged or degraded or wasn't properly kept, like that would never have happened. We would have had Wham in 240p or whatever it was. But it somebody has to bear the burden of keeping that alive.
Now, I will say, in all fairness, of all the things to restore into 4K, Wham's Last Christmas would not be on my list. In fact, if I never hear that song again, I'm okay with that. And this is like you can like bring up lots of issues, and I'm gonna basically have no opinion. But like, Last Christmas is not a Christmas song. It could be Last
That's where
Tuesday.
Our priorities are.
It could be Last Tuesday, and the song would be just as the same meaning.
Oh gosh.
So anyway,
So you're saying Last Tuesday,
I
you
gave you my
gave
heart.
someone your heart. Yep.
It's just as Christmassy as Last Christmas is Last Tuesday. I'm saying there's no difference. They just threw Christmas in there and said, "Oh, it's a Christmas song," but it's not. Anyway, that's like my only hot button issue. I don't get upset about anything, but that song actually upsets me. Like
That might be the best rant I've ever heard you go on. I'm very happy about this.
Like literally, there's nothing that
Wow.
upsets me more than that song in the world. Well, actually, that's not true.
You're hearing it here first.
It's not a Christmas song.
Oh goodness.
And I love Christmas music.
Okay.
So that's how
Now I
listen to
know
the
what
radio.
to get you next Christmas.
My
That's
heart.
The 4K version of that.
Something in 4K. That's what I'm gonna say.
I'm gonna get I'm gonna get like spammed with all these links to that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send you all the Mariah Carey Christmas songs.
No, I'm okay with Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey's the bomb diggity compared to that. So
No, I can't. No.
Nope. Especially when they started putting her songs out like September or something.
Yeah.
In, like stores and stuff.
You could watch the 4K video. You could just turn, just mute it. All you have to do is mute it. You can enjoy the 4K.
I have a sister-in-law who also knows that this is like my one thing, and so every Christmas she makes a big deal out of it, and it's just as intense for me today as it was 10 years ago. It hasn't changed the amount of irritation that it provides.
Is it as intense for you now as it was last Christmas?
Yes.
Well played. Well played.
It'll be perfect.
What was that, Wendy? I'm sorry, it got cut out a little bit.
Rickroll. I'll just send you Last Christmas.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We'll call that Nate rolling.
Oh, thanks, Eris. Eris, you're just a peach. Just a peach.
Zoom chat. Oh boy.
Yep. So the
Look
Zoom
at
chat.
that mullet.
Look, yeah, I know. I mean, he's got
very fluffy.
I'm gonna say he does have nice hair. That's the one thing. That's the one caveat. He does have nice hair.
Gotta give him that.
Yeah, I gotta give him that. Got great 80s hair. I'll never have that.
Look, he is in a jacket, so I mean, you can. And there's snow in the background,
And he has a scarf, but it doesn't matter.
and he has a scarf and a sweater. I mean,
Which has nothing to do with Linux. All right.
this has been. This is when it's really fun, when we just go completely off the rails.
Mm-hmm. There was a I saw a meme somebody sent me, like, things are, it was like a kind of poking fun at Texas when it gets snow. There was a train that was like in the middle of a highway. So apparently in Texas, if the snow is really, if it ices there really bad, even the trains leave the tracks. So that's what it feels like. There's a train going down a dirt road right now.
I feel
Okay.
at home. Every show like this.
Pretty much, yeah. I think
We try, Wendy. A lot of times he keeps us on track, and it's no fun. So we have to really push
And
him.
then the other times he goes, "Oh, squirrel."
Yeah, I'm used to LOL, where it's like the ADHD show of the network. So,
so. There's a common thread, I think, though, if you think about it, between the two shows.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. There's no hope. No hope. Well, for those of us that use Chrome or Chromium-based browsers, I don't know if that's all of us here. Probably. There is a
I
Google
use Chromium.
Does it taste better?
Oh God!
I'm still on Firefox. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm still using Firefox too.
I'm using Firefox here, but I'm using Chromium.
It's platform dependent.
I have abandoned Firefox.
That hurts my heart.
Sorry.
So Google and the Linux Foundation today have announced the creation of the Supporters of Chromium-Based Browsers Fund to help provide funding to open source developers working on Chromium-based open source projects. So the Supporters of Chromium-Based Browsers initiative is to help foster sustainable open source contributions to the Chromium ecosystem. Google is responsible for around 94% of the contributions to the open source Chromium project. They probably make some money off of it too, I'd say. And to a much smaller extent, Microsoft. So Samsung, Opera, Egal, and others also. So with Chromium being used for the Electron app framework to countless custom applications, the hope is that supporters of the Chromium-based browsers will lead to more sustainable development around it. The Linux Foundation is hosting the supporters of Chromium-based browsers as a neutral area for the initiative. In addition to Google providing funding, Meta, Microsoft, and Opera are also part of this initiative. So do you think this right here, if you have all these different, you have this open source project with a whole foundation around it now, do you think this puts Firefox at greater risk now of poof disappearing?
Yes.
No.
No.
I'll say this simply because if Firefox disappears, then Google Chrome is the monopoly for the web. And from what I understand, this is kind of a measure to kind of there's been some talk that Google may be forced to sell Chrome off or split Chrome off into another company. So I think this is kind of a stopgap measure to offload some of the development onto third parties. So if that happens, then Google is not just like Chrome doesn't get any updates, right?
So I have questions. My question being Chromium is the base and Chrome is their Google's version. Just like my understanding is Microsoft Edge is based on Chromium as well as Opera and all these other ones, Brave. Aren't they based on Chromium? So wouldn't it be is the Linux Foundation actually supporting the Chromium version or specifically Chrome?
So Chrome, Google basically, it's 97%, I think is what the number was, has basically been their project, their thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at it from two different ways. One, I think by separating it a little bit from Google, so there's other contributors that maybe it might make it more, I don't know, maybe more neutral overall as a framework, and then Chrome, Google puts their googly bits into it, but there's googly bits that are already kind of like baked into the whole thing anyway. So even if you install Edge, it gives the option to install to connect your Google account as well as your Microsoft account to it. So for me, my perspective would be it'd be kind of nice to maybe not have that googly bit as part of it, and then maybe that might kind of change my mind a little bit about it. But I think that I don't know. I guess to answer your question, Dale, I don't know.
Here's what from the press release from the 22nd. So far, and this is Chromium-based browsers. So no, not Chromium specifically. Chromium-based. So Google, Meta, Microsoft, Opera, they have all sort of pledged and committed to whatever this is they're trying to do. So they've got quotes from people at Chrome, at Microsoft Edge, at Opera, So these are all the derivative browsers. I'm on something. Thank you. Sorry. So anyway, yeah, it's the actual the end developers, so the ones that have built. I mean, you can use Chromium as its own standalone browser, but Chrome adds more, Google adds more stuff in Chrome on top of that. Edge obviously brings their own stuff, and Opera and Vivaldi if you use that, or Brave. And I honestly don't see this as a terrible idea. The truth is that the Mozilla Foundation is not doing as well as maybe they could, or that we hope that they would. And the reality is, that they kind of have to do, to keep this line of communication open. I think it's good for them to have this, this conversation open between the Linux Foundation and these programmers, to make sure that, hey, you're developing these things that's still working well on Linux. You get those assurances. So I think a lot of people see it as maybe being a potentially, like this is a way for Google or Meta or these other companies to I don't know, infiltrate. I'm not exactly sure what the fear is here. Or it's a way to push Firefox further out. But I think the reality is, like, this is probably a good thing to just have these relationships form. I mean, anyone who's ever been that does conferences or goes to different places and can see, the type of interactions that happen like that, just even in a business perspective, like these are usually really good things. So it's good that these people are, even if it's on paper, that they're supporting this kind of a relationship. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, the difference between, like, let's say, the open source Chrome project and Chrome itself is Chrome is offered as binaries. You can't compile Chrome on any platform. Chromium, you can. That's an easy way to distinguish.
So Run with a Dolphin says, Google may well want to dish off Chromium to the Linux Foundation. They can say, look, we're just one more Chromium-based browser, and I don't think that fools anybody. Chromium is Google and always has been. So I think, I don't know if it's an act of deception, or if it is actually just a separation.
I think it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, it's essentially Google still pulling saying what gets into Chrome or Chromium, not like the individual developers have any real voice into like what features or what compatibility or whatever gets baked into Chromium. It's I think a little thinly veiled, kind of cover your backside kind of move.
Yeah, I can see that too.
I would like to hope that there is some. I'm using Firefox. I've been using Firefox for a little bit here. I like it, but I am also very well aware that their market share has done nothing but shrink, and that's probably going to continue to happen. Realistically, it is unsustainable in the long run, and I know that sucks to deal with, because Firefox is really cool. So I am glad that at least this sort of kind of like foundational base thing, especially with it being the Linux Foundation, considering I feel like they're a good body to do something like this. I'm hoping that in the long run, it does lead to just, if we are going to have a single general code base for the web, it at least be something that is moderated and split in a way that allows decisions to be made not wholly by Google, but that is going to take a lot of effort in regards to Google's contributions not really being 97%, but there being more contributions from other parties. Ideally, if this is something that outlives Firefox, developers that would have otherwise been working on Firefox's engine and things like that would be contributing code to make things better in Chromium for every other browser instead. So, but I'd like to keep Firefox.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't think Google can allow Firefox to die. I mean, that's just like the hard political story behind this is if Firefox dies, then we have like basically an antitrust situation with just Chromium, right?
I think the play is that because Chromium is no longer Google's thing, but Chrome itself is, with Edge gaining market share, that would sort of absolve them of that responsibility. At least it's a little pessimistic, but I think that's their play, to be honest.
I think kind of like the whole Microsoft Apple thing way back in the day when they almost split up. A lot of Microsoft companies had to do the whole split thing and all that kind of stuff to prevent the becoming a monopoly. If I remember correctly, Microsoft helped Apple get back on their feet so they wouldn't have a monopoly. And this might be one of those situations where Google's gonna have to do something, maybe bail out Firefox somehow. I don't know.
Kind of what they've been
have been. Yeah.
I know, but I mean, they're gonna have to do something to really bring it back up. I don't know what they could do because if you look at a lot of companies out there, when they gear their tools in the IT world, for example, when they getting things set up for their tools and stuff like that, they do a lot of it is based through Chrome. Because Chrome is compatible with a lot of stuff. Like we ran into that when the Bank of America, a lot of us wanted to use Firefox, but half the programs just wouldn't perform properly inside of Firefox, so we had to use Chrome. So that is one of the maybe they're going to have to try to develop help Firefox get more compatibility so that it can get a bigger share. That's probably what's going to end up having to happen.
Yeah.
Right, Bob? Huh?
There's a reason that people use Chromium as the base. I mean, it like if you have a company like Google that stands behind it and is able to keep up with security. I mean, a browser itself is just such a complicated thing just as a piece of software, and then you have all of the potential for abuse and hacking and all the rest of it, and the necessity to stay on top of that. And it would be difficult for any open source project to do that. And then on top of that, I think because the Mozilla Foundation views Firefox just as one of the things they do instead of them existing for and because of Firefox, it just does not get, in my opinion, the type of attention that it should. I say I'm platform dependent for using Firefox. Personally, for me, the Firefox browser on Android is unusable. It's buggy, slow, and I have lots of problems with compatibility issues on sites. And so the best I can do is Vivaldi, which, yes, it's Chromium-based, but it's not Edge. It's not any of the browsers I don't want to use, like Chrome, or, it's the best of the worst, so to speak. I don't hate it, but I would rather be able to use Firefox, but I can't. So, yeah, and to me, if I was Mozilla and I cared about Firefox being as good, if not better, than the competition, I would make damn sure that it worked very, very well, especially on Android, considering that would be a much larger market share than the desktop or laptops ever would be. The mobile client would be, mobile app has got to be a bigger focus. Because I think people on Android would like to have a better alternative. Like, and if
So-
Firefox just killed it on Android, I think they could really have some serious market share. But they don't, because it sucks.
So I almost exclusively use the Firefox browser and Android. I don't know if it's just maybe it's the phone, but
I have a good phone, and it's been consistently bad across several handsets compared to something like Vivaldi, and I think that's the problem.
Okay.
If I was ignorant and didn't know any better, or I just maybe didn't use my phone as much as I do. No, I don't mean it in an offensive way. I just mean it like,
none comprehended.
Yeah. I mean, the last one the bug I found was like inputting text. If you put in enough text, it just makes your keyboard go crazy. And at first I thought like, oh, maybe it's the keyboard I'm using or something like that. No, it's Firefox. Some
That's
bug.
wild.
And you go and you look, and it's there. It's logged. It's just not fixed.
I've never experienced that bug on Android with Firefox myself. I mean, I use Firefox, been using it on Android for quite a long time, but maybe I don't do as extensive as what you do. I'm not sure, but Yeah.
Yeah, and I think compatibility too, what I've found with a lot of, unfortunately, like medical portals and websites and stuff like that, is that they assume you're using Chrome or Chromium. And so there's you're already having that issue as well. So
that's the problem, isn't it? I mean, is it? Sorry, Shickle.
It's both. I have
Is it by
compatibility
design-
issues and bugs. So those are the two things.
Is it by design that it has problems because they, correct me if I'm wrong, they get a lot of funding from Google Chrome, right? Is that correct? Firefox?
From Google advertising. For the search engine, for the
From
search
Google
engine
advertising,
specifically.
right.
Yeah, like
Right.
or
So
putting
it's not in their
Google
best
as the
interest.
default search engine.
So it's probably not in their best interest for Firefox to be as good as them, is it? Oh, I don't know. Is that just by design? I don't know, because they are monopoly. Well, they're not a monopoly, but I mean, there's everything based on Chromium.
That would be
works,
the
doesn't it,
antitrust
at the end of the day?
perspective, right? I mean, that's what they would say from if they were trying to get Chrome broken off as a separate entity or business entity, then yeah, they would say that just because you're the search side of things is giving money to Mozilla, that doesn't actually change anything about Chrome and the way that you treat Chrome versus Firefox. And it's not Google's fault necessarily that companies develop websites that only work on Chrome.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, they do that because I mean, the majority of the companies that develop for a Chromium-based or Chrome-based, their applications around that is because of some of those bug issues.
I'm just
they
as
want
guilty
the
of it as the
stability.
next person.
Yeah,
I mean,
they want that
I
stability.
build websites and I use Firefox because I figure if it works on Firefox, it'll definitely work on Chrome, but it's not the other way around. If you build something on Chrome, it may not work on Firefox.
And chances are it's gonna, if it does work on Firefox, it's gonna have some sort of bug or something that goes wrong with it. So that's what I ran into. A lot of issues I ran into, like I said, when I worked for the bank, is we would test to see what we could do and what we couldn't do between the two applications, between Firefox and Chrome, and everything worked in Chrome. But there were certain certain sites, internal sites that we would use for to access employee data or whatever. Those wouldn't work in Firefox. Things like that. It's not like huge life-changing things that are not working in my perspective, but it's enough to where I pretty much use Chromium-based browsers because everything seems to work in it.
There was a previous U.S. court that said that Google was a monopoly and that it had to stop at some point. I don't think there has been a date. It had to stop giving money to Mozilla to be the #1 default search engine.
Oh, that's interesting.
I've been using Firefox on my phone as well. And the reason too that I'm not using some other Chromium-based browsers really just because I was like, I ended up really liking the configuration options on Firefox on desktop, like the way that it's like customizable but it's not too much. But I really need sync between my clients. Like I can't use a browser that doesn't have sync options. It just doesn't work for me. But I've had a good experience with it on mobile, thankfully. But I only do the basic stuff, right? Like I know that I don't tread too far like out of like normal web browsing. Um and one thing that I kind of like about Firefox on desktop and mobile is that it does, or it can, break websites, but specifically around privacy or security settings. So I do crank up the like the blockers and stuff like that, and I do crank up, like I do make sure like strict DNS settings are set. And if a site doesn't work, I simply just do not use that site because I'm like, well, but that's also not an option for a lot of people, and yeah, and that's even regarding bugs. Like, if there's a bug using a website that you actually need to work, um, like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like there's no remedy for that other than just using a Chromium-based browser. Um, and it's really unfortunate because I feel like, I mean, I think we all probably remember when Firefox was actually really cooking, um, to use some weird jargon, but it just now it just feels like I'm almost using it out of pity, um, which is not how I want to use it.
You're muted, Nate.
You're saying Firefox is really cooking, and now it's cooked.
They cooked too hard.
Oh my god!
They've got to take it out of the oven.
Yeah.
So, there's something that I can only use Firefox for certain things though, and so I'll give you an example. You know, I was talking about jump boxes. So, in order to obfuscate certain parts of the network, I've created others. I didn't create it, but what was set up is the ability to, so I can't just get into whatever I need to at work. I have to like jump into something else to be able to get to the other thing. If that makes any sense, to kind of protect the network. And the only way I can do the jump box thing effectively, I have to use Firefox to make it work. Actually, I don't really have to, but it's way more convenient in Firefox. So you can set like a SOCKS host, SOCKS host in Firefox on a specific port. So I create a specific profile for doing specific work in the facilities where I can jump into a host and then be able to access basically from that host. Now there's different ways of doing this, but I do that to kind of isolate certain VLANs off from, you know, the general workforce in there. And if somebody VPNs in, it's just another layer of protection essentially. So I have a specific Firefox profile set up that I can use that profile to do specific work on those VLANs when I have to. And I can't do that in Chromium or Chrome-based browsers. I have to change system settings because they don't have that as an ability to do that. So from my perspective, I can't do my work. I can't do my work effectively or as easily on Chromium-based because they just don't have that capability that Firefox does. And so that is a real edge case and extremely esoteric. So probably like the all of like 13 people in the world that do that need this function. Because I'm sure it's not a very common thing to do. But anyway, so it's that's one of those things that like I really appreciate about Firefox, being able to make it so I can operate as though I'm physically in another location. Well, not being. And I'm sure there's comments like, "Oh, you can do it this way or that way or this way," and I'm like, "Yeah, I could probably, but I'm not. This is how I'm doing it."
So one thing that we haven't mentioned about Firefox is that it is currently still supporting Manifest v2, which is important for the ad blockers. So if you're using like uBlock Origin, Google has said, you know, we're going to Manifest v3 and none of this Manifest v2 stuff is going to work anymore. And that basically severely limits the size of the code that can run within extensions. And with ad blockers, you have a huge pile of code because there's a lot of things to block out there. So that's a potential, you know, like ace in the hole for Firefox at this point if they really want to like push that aspect and have that available for people.
I think unfortunately, if there's an ace in the hole, Firefox or Mozilla likes to avoid those directly. Just in general,
You're probably right.
It just seems like as an organization, they don't seem to go after the low-hanging fruits for what users actually want, and especially those that probably those that actually use Firefox the most are probably tech enthusiasts at some level because they have different functions, esoteric functions within, like, you know, what was that? What did you call it? It was so the U-block origin can work. What was the
right? So it's a limitation
called?
Between manifest v3, which limits the amount of code that can run with an extension, and manifest v2, which has a much larger scope of code that can run in extensions. Among other things. I mean, I'm oversimplifying it there, but you know, it like the U-block origin Lite that would work on manifest v3 would be so crippled in comparison.
Yeah, is it manifest? What's it called? Say it again.
Manifest v3.
Okay, manifest
like
v3. Okay,
3.
I'll make sure I heard it right.
So now one thing I've been wondering all these years is what is wrong with these people? Because when it comes to Firefox, it seems like some of the blunders they've made, you know, were major, you know, like something that a person who isn't exactly an expert in that area would have understood or tried to navigate around. And so I don't get it. The way that they operate, I don't understand how they can't get their thing together after all these years. It's been a long time that they just keep tripping over their own feet.
I think it would be interesting to go back and just look at the decline, because if you go back and looking through history, so Internet Explorer was sort of the dominant browser by de facto because, you know, it came in the operating system, but also there really wasn't a wonderful. I mean, Netscape Navigator, if you go all the way back, was the original browser, and then Internet Explorer simply because they gave it away versus Netscape Navigator wanted to charge for it, and free is always going to attract the most users. And then at some point, Firefox came out, and it was like a revelation. It was so much better than Internet Explorer ever was, because Internet Explorer crashed all the time. It locked up all the time. It would crash your computer. I mean, it was just a mess. And Firefox was this like graceful, fast, performant browser that was beautiful and just worked really well. And they gained a massive portion of market share in the browser market. And then they just fell apart. Like they started making terrible decisions, and it opened the door for Chrome, which actually I would contend, because Firefox was making so many mistakes and was actually becoming such a poor experience, that Chrome, I remember specifically trying not to use Chrome because I still wanted to use Firefox. And this was before Quantum, if you remember that. This was the old like generation of Firefox before like the rebuild of Quantum. You know, it was almost unusable. And I mean, I even remember my wife like having all these problems on Firefox, and I finally just installed Chrome on her computer one day, and she's like, "Oh, this is so much better." Like, and that's how everybody felt whenever they would try Chrome, compared to how bad Firefox was. And like, it'd be interesting to figure out like what happened. Like, why were they trying to, you know, focus on the wrong things, or were they just putting out buggy code, or like what specifically led to so many people jumping ship to actually install a different browser? Which, as we know, getting people to install anything that isn't on their computer already is difficult.
Yeah.
So that means it would have had to have been bad enough for them to look for an alternative. So yeah, I don't have the answer to that. But
you would think that they would have an incentive to try to, let's do the best we can. Okay, what's the problem? Let's get to the root of the issue. All right, let's get it straight, and then we can have a great browser that people love. And
it would have to be, but see Swift, the problem is it's not that it couldn't just be as good. There would have to be two things. One, it would have to be better in demonstrable ways. And two, I really think that Chrome would have to somehow get worse. Because if you look at the historical perspective on this, like the reason that the door was open for Firefox in the first place was because Internet Explorer was so bad. And now you're in the situation, though, where Chrome is really not a terrible browser. I mean, it does exactly what it's supposed to do. I think most people are used to how it functions. And so you've got sort of muscle memory and people, understand how to use it. And so you've got that mountain to climb. I mean, I just don't see a world where Mozilla ever gets Firefox back to any meaningful market share.
Oh, wow.
I think a lot of it has to do with really the focus. I think just as an organization, I think the success Firefox has as a browser, I think might be in spite of itself more than because they are actually working to make it better. And every once in a while they have like these leaps forward, like with Quantum. It was a quantum leap forward. And I remember, I think it's about 2014 or 15. Like I was actually a heavy Chrome user for quite a while. Like that was my primary browser. But I'm going to say it was around 2015 or so. That's actually when I went back to Firefox because Chrome actually became so bloated that the memory management on Chrome was so much worse than on Firefox. About the time Quantum, I think, yes.
Quantum was when I came back because it became a very good browser at that point. The extensions were great. And that's still something that I mean, there are things I can do on Firefox that I cannot do on Chrome. It's as simple as that. Because of the way Chrome is built, you can't do the container tabs like you can in Firefox. And that is still one of my main use cases and workflows is using those. And so I can't if I want to. But if I could, I do question whether if I had the same functionality side by side, would I still keep using Firefox? And I think I would like to keep using it just simply out of principle, but out of practicality is the thing I'm saying.
Yeah, I think
and that's the thing.
Same there.